1 year later, Marcus stood at the window of his quarters in the expanded Stellar Pioneer base, watching ships arrive from Earth. At 9 feet tall now, he had to duck through most human doorways, but the new sections of the base had been built to accommodate beings of all sizes. The patterns beneath his skin swirled with anticipation as he recognized one particular ship, the one carrying his parents. "They were nervous," Aziria said from behind him, her consciousness gently intertwined with his. "But also excited. Their quantum patterns are quite beautiful." Marcus turned to look at his wife. They had been married 3 months ago in a ceremony that combined Earth and Lumerian traditions, broadcast simultaneously to both worlds. The quantum rings they exchanged pulsed in harmony on their fingers, creating intricate patterns in the space between them. "Can you blame them?" he asked with a smile. Their son is now a 9-foot-tall hybrid being with swirling skin patterns, married to a 12-foot-tall alien woman. "It's a lot to process. At least they agreed to come," Aziria said, her lower hands adjusting the ceremonial robe she wore for formal occasions. Many families would not be so open-minded. She was right. The past year had been challenging, beautiful, and transformative, not just for them, but for both their civilizations. After the High Council's intervention, Earth's governments had been forced to acknowledge the reality of not just alien life, but the potential evolution of human consciousness itself. The Stellar Pioneer Base had become a center for human-Lumerian cooperation, with scientists, diplomats, and consciousness seekers from Earth coming to learn from their alien counterparts. Not everyone underwent physical transformation like Marcus, as the Council had said. His path was unique. But hundreds of humans had begun developing quantum awareness under Lumerian guidance, each finding their own way to expand their consciousness while remaining physically human. "Dr. Chen?" A voice called from the doorway. "Your parents' ship is docking." Marcus took a deep breath, his skin patterns betraying his mix of emotions. "Ready?" he asked Aziria. "To meet my in-laws?" "I've only been preparing for this moment for 3 Earth months," she teased, her patterns forming the playful hearts that never failed to make him smile. They made their way to the docking area, drawing the usual mix of odd and curious looks from new arrivals. Marcus had gotten used to being a living symbol of human potential, though he sometimes missed the days when he was just another scientist. The airlock cycled, and there they were, Henry and Mei Chen, looking small and thoroughly overwhelmed as they stepped onto an alien world for the first time. They stopped short when they saw Marcus, despite having seen him in video communications. "Hi, Mom. Dad," he said softly, trying to keep his quantum presence gentle and non-intrusive. They were still learning to handle even basic quantum awareness. His mother moved first, stepping forward with tears in her eyes. "Marcus," she whispered, you look happy." It wasn't what he expected her to say, but it was perfect. "I am happy, Mom. Happier than I've ever been." He knelt down carefully to embrace her, noting how his arms could now wrap around her several times. His father was staring at Aziria, who had respectfully remained a few steps back. "So," he said, his scientist's curiosity warring with fatherly concern, "You were the one who stole my son, his heart across the stars." "Actually," Aziria said, her voice carrying its musical undertones that had become famous on Earth broadcasts, "I prefer to think we found each other as hearts in the space between stars." She knelt down as well, bringing herself closer to their level. "And I promise you, I treasure his heart as much as I treasure the chance to call you family." Something in her voice, in the genuine love and respect she projected, seemed to break the tension. May stepped forward and, to everyone's surprise, hugged one of Aziria's legs, the highest part of her she could reach. "Thank you," she said, "for making our son so happy." The quantum field around them resonated with emotion, love, acceptance, hope, and possibility. Other families would have similar moments in the months and years to come, as more humans embrace the chance to evolve and connect with their Lumerian neighbors. Later that evening, after showing his parents around the base and introducing them to the wonders of quantum consciousness viewing, Marcus and Aziria stood in their favorite spot, a garden where Earth plants grew alongside Lumerian flora, creating beautiful and impossible hybrids. "Just like us," Aziria said, following his thoughts as she often did now. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked, "choosing a path that made you something of an oddity among your own people?" Her skin patterns formed complex fractals of emotion. My love, I chose to follow my heart across the quantum field to find you. How could I regret something that was written in the very fabric of space-time? She placed one of her hands over his heart, and he placed one of his over hers. Their quantum rings pulsed in sync, creating a small aurora of possibility around them. In that moment, both could sense the futures branching out before them. The children they would have who would be neither human nor Lumerian but something gloriously new. The bridges they would help build between civilizations. The love that would echo across dimensions. Besides, she added with a musical laugh, being normal is vastly overrated. Marcus laughed with her, the sound carrying harmonics that no original human vocal cords could produce. Above him, the burgundy sky was filled with stars, and he could perceive the quantum threads that connected each one, weaving the universe together in a tapestry of consciousness and possibility. Love, they had discovered, was like light. It existed in all dimensions at once, transcending the boundaries of space, time, and form. Their story would be told for generations on both worlds, not just as a tale of unlikely romance, but as the moment when humanity began to understand that the greatest journeys of discovery often begin with a single heart reaching out across the stars to find another. As the alien sun set on another day in their shared life, Marcus and Azuria stood together in their garden of hybrid flowers, their different-sized shadows merging into one on the ground behind them. They had become living proof that love could not only cross the gulf between stars but could reshape the very nature of reality itself. And somewhere in the quantum field, where all possibilities existed at once, their consciousness danced together in perfect harmony, showing both their worlds that the greatest power in the universe was in technology, or evolution, or even consciousness itself. It was love in all its beautiful, impossible forms. Dr. Marcus Chen never imagined his first step on an alien world would lead him straight into the arms of love. As the xenobiologist aboard the International Space Coalition's first mission to Kepler-186f, he prepared himself for countless possibilities, hostile atmospheres, dangerous fauna, or even microscopic pathogens that could wipe out the entire crew. What he hadn't prepared for was her. The landing had gone smoothly, almost too smoothly, considering they were making history as the first humans to set foot on a potentially habitable exoplanet. Their ship, the Stellar Pioneer, touched down in a valley surrounded by towering purple leaf trees that swayed gently in the alien breeze. The air was breathable, though slightly thinner than Earth, yes, and the gravity was about 1.2 times stronger, making everyone's movements just a little more labored. Check those atmospheric readings again, Commander Sarah Rodriguez ordered as they prepared for their first excursion. I don't want any surprises once we out there. Marcus double-checked his instruments, noting the familiar mixture of nitrogen and oxygen, with trace amounts of noble gases. The readings hadn't changed since they first arrived in orbit 3 days ago. All clear, Commander. Atmosphere is still within human tolerance. As he stepped out of the airlock wearing only a light environmental suit, no helmet required, Marcus felt like he was walking into a painting. The sky above was a deep burgundy, thanks to the red dwarf star that served as this world's sun. 2 moons hung in the sky like mismatched eyes, one significantly larger than the other. The landscape was a riot of colors that shouldn't work together but somehow did. Purple vegetation, orange rock formations, and patches of what looked like grass in various shades of blue. He was so absorbed in documenting the local flora that he almost missed the first sign of intelligent life. A shadow fell across his tablet, much too large to be cast by any of his crewmates. When he looked up, his heart nearly stopped. She stood nearly 12 feet tall, her skin the color of Earth's summer sky, with subtle patterns that seemed to shift and swirl beneath the surface like clouds in motion. Her 4 arms moved with impossible grace as she regarded him with eyes that contained entire galaxies, literally, as they seemed to sparkle with points of light that swirled in their depths. Her face was oddly beautiful despite being so alien, with features that somehow managed to be both sharp and soft simultaneously. A translucent membrane occasionally flickered across those fascinating eyes, like a living gemstone catching the light. Marcus had learned 6 languages in preparation for potential first contact scenarios. He studied every theoretical framework for alien communication. But in that moment, all he could manage was a breathless hello. The being tilted her head at an angle that should have been physically impossible. And then, to his utter amazement, she smiled. The expression was so surprisingly human that it made his knees weak. Or maybe that was just the stronger gravity. "You are very small," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying musical undertones that seemed to drift on the wind. "But your mind sings beautifully." Marcus blinked, his scientific training warring with his shock. You speak English? How is that possible?" She laughed, and the sound reminded him of wind chimes in a summer breeze. "We have been watching your transmissions for many of your years. Your languages are simple." There was no condescension in her voice, just statement of fact. "I am Aziria, third scholar of the Celestial Academy. We have been expecting you, though you arrived earlier than our calculations predicted." Before Marcus could respond, his comm unit crackled to life. "Chen, report! We're picking up some unusual readings from your location." Commander Rodriguez, his voice was tense with concern. With trembling fingers, Marcus keyed his comm. "Commander, we're going to want to see this. We've made contact." Peaceful contact. He couldn't take his eyes off Aziria, who was now examining his equipment with an expression of gentle amusement, as though she were watching a child play with blocks. "I can show you our city," Aziria offered, gesturing with her lower right hand toward a shimmer in the distance that Marcus had initially mistaken for a heat mirage. "Though you may find it challenging to navigate, given your size." That was when Marcus noticed the floating platforms at various heights throughout the valley, nearly invisible until you knew to look for them. What he had taken for empty air was actually a three-dimensional metropolis, its architecture so advanced it was nearly imperceptible to human eyes. As he stared in wonder, Aziria extended one of her hands toward him. Her fingers were long and elegant, with an extra joint that allowed them to curve in fascinating ways. "Would you like to learn, small scholar?" In that moment, looking up at her impossible height, her alien beauty, and the intelligence that radiated from her like starlight, Marcus made a decision that would change not only his life but potentially the course of human history. He reached up and took her hand. The size difference should have made the gesture awkward, but somehow it wasn't. Her skin was warm and had a subtle texture like silk over steel. As their hands touched, he felt a slight tingling sensation, as though static electricity were dancing between them. But it wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, it felt right in a way he couldn't explain. "Yes," he said, his voice stronger now. "I want to learn everything." Aziria's smile widened, and the patterns beneath her skin swirled faster, creating mesmerizing designs that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. "Then let us begin your education, Marcus Chen of Earth. There is so much more to the universe than your species has dreamed of." As she led him toward the invisible city, Marcus couldn't help but notice how the alien sunlight played across her skin, creating rainbow refractions that danced in the air around them. He was a scientist, trained to observe and analyze, but for the first time in his life, he found himself wanting to do more than just study. He wanted to understand, to connect, to explore not just this new world but the fascinating being who had welcomed him to it. This, he realized, was how first contact was supposed to feel. Not with fear or suspicion, but with wonder and the first stirrings of something that felt remarkably like attraction, however impossible that might seem. As they walked together, their size difference became less and less important. After all, in the face of the vast universe they both studied, weren't they all small? The invisible city of Lumaria revealed itself to Marcus like a crystal forming in solution, gradually, then all at once. As Aziria guided him onto one of the floating platforms, the air around them seemed to crystallize into sweeping archways and graceful spires that defied Earth's architectural conventions. The buildings existed in 4 dimensions, folding through space in ways that made his head spin if he looked too closely. "Your optical processing centers will adjust," Aziria assured him, noticing his disorientation. "The quantum architecture can be challenging for species who perceive only 3 spatial dimensions." Commander Rodriguez and the rest of the landing team had joined them, all wearing expressions that mirrored Marcus' initial awe. The commander maintained her composure, though Marcus noticed her hands trembling slightly as she documented everything with her camera. "Our facilities have been adapted for your visit," Aziria explained, gesturing with her upper arms while her lower hands manipulated what appeared to be invisible controls in the air. The platform began to rise smoothly, carrying them toward a structure that looked like a cross between a cathedral and a soap bubble. Though we hadn't expected you quite so soon. You mentioned that before, Marcus said, finding his voice. How did you know we were coming? Azuria's skin patterns shifted to a deeper blue, which Marcus was beginning to suspect indicated amusement. Your species broadcasts your intentions quite loudly, both technologically and otherwise. She paused, those galaxy-filled eyes fixing on him. Your thoughts? Especially, saying with remarkable clarity. Marcus felt his cheeks warm. You can read my thoughts? Not in the way you reimagining, she said. We perceive what you might call the quantum consciousness, the underlying patterns of thought and emotion that exist independent of neural activity. Your species is still learning to access this layer of reality. But you, Marcus Chen, have an unusually strong resonance. The platform docked with the cathedral bubble structure, and Marcus realized it was some kind of research facility. The interior was filled with what he assumed were laboratories, though the equipment was like nothing he'd ever seen. Occasionally, objects would phase in and out of existence, and streams of what looked like liquid light flowed through transparent conduits. As the commander and other crew members were led away by other members of Azuria's species, all equally tall and blue-skinned, though none affected Marcus quite the way she did, Azuria guided him to what appeared to be her personal laboratory. This is where I study interspecies consciousness mapping, she explained. It's my particular field of expertise at the Academy. She moved around the space with fluid grace, her forearms working in perfect coordination as she adjusted equipment and brought up displays that hung in the air like aurora borealis. It's beautiful, Marcus said, though he wasn't just looking at the equipment. The way she moved was mesmerizing, and the patterns beneath her skin had taken on a silvery quality that made her seem to glow from within. She turned to him, and he could have sworn her skin flushed a slightly deeper blue. You find our physical form appealing, she said. It wasn't a question. That is unexpected. Most species we encounter find us too alien for aesthetic appreciation. Marcus felt his own flush deepen. I am a xenobiologist. Finding beauty in alien life forms is part of my job. Even as he said it, he knew it wasn't the whole truth. His appreciation for Azuria went far beyond scientific interest. But there's a difference between academic appreciation and what you re-feeling now, she said softly. Her lower right hand moved toward him, then hesitated. May I show you something? He nodded, and she gently pressed one long finger to his forehead. The world exploded into color and sensation. Suddenly, he could see the quantum layer she had mentioned. The underlying fabric of reality where thoughts and emotions wove together like threads in an infinite tapestry. He could see his own consciousness as a complex pattern of light and energy. And more surprisingly, he could see how it harmonized with Azuria in unexpected ways. Our species are very different physically, she said, her voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. But in this layer, we are remarkably compatible. Your pattern complements mine in ways I've never encountered before. The vision faded, leaving Marcus gasping slightly. What does that mean? It means, she said, kneeling down to bring herself closer to his height, that perhaps the universe has a sense of humor. Or perhaps it simply delights in bringing together seemingly incompatible pieces to create something new and beautiful. Their eyes met, and Marcus felt that static electricity tingle again, stronger this time. Despite their vast physical differences, despite the fact that they came from different worlds and different evolutionary histories, something was growing between them that transcended all of that. I should be cataloging specimens, he said weakly, writing reports about first contact protocols. You are, she said, her skin patterns forming intricate fractals that seemed to reach out toward him. You, redocumenting the most important discovery your species could make, that consciousness, connection, and even love are not bound by physical forms or planetary origins. Love, he echoed, his heart racing. Isn't it a bit soon to be talking about that? She laughed, that wind chime sound that made his spine tingle. Time is more flexible than your species currently understands. In the quantum layer, our connections already exist across all possible timelines. We're just now becoming aware of them in this particular manifestation. As if to demonstrate, she held out her hand again, and this time when Marcus took it, he could feel the resonance between them, a harmony of consciousness that made their physical differences seem trivial by comparison. I want to learn everything about you, he said, surprising himself with his boldness. Your science, your culture, your way of seeing the universe. And I want to understand how your mind creates such beautiful patterns despite, or perhaps because of, its limitations," she replied. "Shall we learn together?" The rest of that day passed in a blur of discovery and wonder. Aziria showed him experiments that challenged his understanding of physics, explained concepts that made him question everything he thought he knew about consciousness and reality, and gradually, carefully, began teaching him to perceive the quantum layer without her direct assistance. But more than the scientific revelations, it was the growing connection between them that fascinated him most. Every time their hands touched, every shared glance, every moment of shared understanding seemed to strengthen whatever this impossible thing between them was becoming. As the alien sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of deep crimson and gold, Marcus realized he had completely forgotten to file his required reports or check in with the rest of the team. Somehow, in Aziria's presence, everything else had faded into the background. "You should return to your ship," she said, though her skin patterns betrayed her reluctance. "Your Commander Rodriguez will be concerned, and you need time to process everything you learned today. Will I see you tomorrow?" He tried not to sound too eager, too invested, too emotional, but he had a feeling she could see right through any pretense. "Marcus," she said, her voice carrying those musical undertones that made his name sound like a song. "I suspect you'll be seeing me in every tomorrow that matters." Her skin patterns formed a series of interlocking hearts, a human symbol she must have learned from Earth broadcasts, and then shifted back to their natural state with a ripple of what could only be described as joy. As he made his way back to the Stellar Pioneer that evening, Marcus found himself wondering if perhaps he had traveled across light years not just for scientific discovery, but for something far more profound. In his pocket, he carried a small crystal Aziria had given him, a quantum resonance device that would help him practice perceiving the deeper layers of reality. But more importantly, he carried the growing certainty that he had found something he never knew he was looking for. The problems began 3 weeks into the mission, though in retrospect, Marcus should have seen them coming. The first sign of trouble came during the morning briefing, when Commander Rodriguez cleared her throat meaningfully and pulled up his latest reports on the holoscreen. "Dr. Chen," she said, her tone carefully neutral, "would you care to explain why 90% of your field notes are about Aziria's species, consciousness mapping capabilities, while we have virtually no data on the local flora and fauna, which is, technically, your primary assignment?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The other crew members studiously avoided eye contact, though he could sense their mixed reactions. Some seemed amused, others concerned, and a few, particularly Dr. Watson, the mission's psychologist, appeared openly worried. "The consciousness mapping technology could revolutionize our understanding of sentient life," he defended, knowing even as he spoke that he wasn't being entirely honest with himself. Yes, the technology was fascinating, but it was Aziria herself who occupied most of his thoughts. "And the fact that you've been spending every available moment with the third scholar has nothing to do with this hyper-focus?" Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. "Marcus, I understand the intellectual excitement of first contact, but we need you to maintain scientific objectivity." The irony of discussing objectivity while he could literally feel Aziria's quantum resonance at the edge of his consciousness wasn't too lost on him. The crystal she'd given him had worked better than either of them had anticipated, or perhaps he was simply unusually receptive. Either way, he was becoming increasingly aware of her presence even when they were physically apart. "I'll diversify my research," he promised, but the commander wasn't too finished. "There's some more," she said, pulling up another document. "The Stellar Pioneer's sensors have detected some unusual energy patterns emanating from your quarters during sleep cycles. Care to explain?" Marcus felt his face grow hot. He'd been practicing the consciousness expansion techniques Aziria had taught him, but he realized they were detectable by the ship's instruments. "It was part of my research into their quantum communication methods," he said, which was technically true, if not complete. "Dr. Chen," Dr. Watson finally spoke up, her voice gentle but concerned, "we need to discuss the psychological implications of intense exposure to alien consciousness-altering technologies." "There are protocols." "I am fine," Marcus interrupted, perhaps too quickly. "Better than fine. I am making breakthroughs in interspecies communication that could advance human understanding by centuries." That's exactly what concerns us, Rodriguez said. The rate of your adaptation to their technology is unprecedented. We need to be certain you haven't been compromised. The suggestion that his connection with Azuria might be some form of alien manipulation stunned more than he expected. Before he could form a reply, his quantum awareness lit up with her familiar presence. She was concerned. He could feel it even through the walls of the ship. Marcus, her voice echoed in his mind, a capability they discovered just days ago. They fear what they don't. Do you understand? Come to the Celestial Academy. There's something you need to see. He stood abruptly, drawing surprised looks from his colleagues. I need some air, he announced, already heading for the exit. And I'll get those botanical samples today, Commander. I promise. Outside, the alien world had begun to feel more like home than the ship's sterile corridors. The purple vegetation no longer seemed strange, and the burgundy sky felt natural overhead. Azuria was waiting for him at their usual meeting spot, her skin pattern swirling with complex emotions he was learning to read. Your crew's concerns are not entirely unfounded, she said as he approached. All four of her hands were in motion, a sign of agitation he'd come to recognize. There are complications we need to discuss. She led him to a new section of the quantum architecture city, to a chamber he hadn't seen before. Inside, holographic displays showed what appeared to be genetic sequences, consciousness patterns, and something else, something that made his newly enhanced perception tingle with recognition. What am I looking at? He asked, though part of him already knew. Your transformation, she said softly. Marcus, the quantum resonance between us, the ease with which you adapted to our technology. It's not just compatibility. Your consciousness is actually altering your physical structure at the quantum level. He stared at the displays, watching as they showed his own genetic code shifting, transforming, reaching for something new. I'm becoming like you? Not exactly, she said, kneeling down to meet his eyes. Something between, something that has never existed before. The question is, do you want to stop it? Marcus looked at his hands, realizing for the first time that the faint patterns he attributed to tricks of light were actually beneath his skin. His connection to the quantum layer wasn't just growing stronger. It was physically changing him. Is it dangerous? He asked, surprised by how calm he felt about the prospect of transforming into something beyond human. Unknown, she admitted. This type of spontaneous quantum evolution has never been documented before. But Marcus, her skin patterns formed those interlocking hearts again, more intricate than ever. If you continue, there is no going back to Earth. Not as you were. The choice should have been difficult. He had a life on Earth, a career, family, friends. But standing there, looking up at this incredible being who had opened his mind to possibilities he'd never imagined, he realized he made his choice the moment he first took her hand. Show me everything, he said. All the data, all the projections. If I am going to transform, I want to document every moment of it. For science, of course, he added with a small smile. For science, she agreed, her skin patterns rippling with joy and something deeper. Though I suspect your Commander Rodriguez will have strong opinions about this development. Let me worry about the Commander, Marcus said, reaching for Azuria's hand. As their fingers intertwined, he felt the familiar electric tingle, stronger now that he understood its true nature. Right now, I want you to teach me more about what I am becoming. The rest of the day passed in a blur of discovery as Azuria showed him the detailed analysis of his transformation. His cells were developing the same quantum-sensitive structures that gave her species their abilities. His nervous system was evolving to process four-dimensional space naturally. Even his height was gradually increasing, though it would be months before the changes became obvious to outside observers. As the alien sun set once again, Marcus knew he should return to the ship, face the Commander, explain what was happening. Instead, he stayed in Azuria's laboratory, watching the patterns beneath his skin grow stronger, feeling his consciousness expand into spaces he never knew existed, and falling deeper into whatever this impossible love was becoming. Tomorrow, he said, both to Azuria and himself, tomorrow I'll deal with the consequences. Tonight, I just want to be here with you, becoming whatever it is we re-becoming together. Her response wasn't in words, but in a surge of emotion through their quantum connection that made the air around them shimmer with possibilities. As they stood together in the growing darkness, their different-sized shadows merged into something new, something that had never existed before in the history of either of their species. The universe, it seemed, had indeed brought them together for a purpose. Now they just had to convince everyone else that love could transcend not just physical forms, but the very nature of humanity itself. The emergency meeting was called at dawn. Marcus stood before the assembled crew of the Stellar Pioneer, aware that he now topped 7 feet in height. A change impossible to hide any longer. The patterns beneath his skin pulsed with anxiety, visible to everyone in the harsh light of the ship's conference room. "This has gone far enough," Commander Rodriguez said, her voice tight with concern. "Dr. Chen, you undergoing an unauthorized biological transformation that could have implications for all of humanity. Scrubbing the mission. The ship leaves in 48 hours. Marcus had expected this reaction, but the timeline shocked him. 48 hours? Commander, we've barely scratched the surface of what we could learn here. The quantum consciousness technology alone has already altered you beyond recognition, Dr. Watson interrupted. Marcus, look at yourself. Your DNA has been rewritten. Your consciousness has been fundamentally changed. We don't even know if these alterations are stable. They were not just stable, a musical voice announced from the doorway. They re-evolutionary perfection. Every head turned to see Aziria ducking through the ship's entrance. At 12 feet tall, she had to bend almost double to fit in the human-sized space, but she managed to make even that look graceful. Her skin patterns were radiating determination and something Marcus recognized as protective instinct. "This is a closed meeting," Rodriguez said, though her hand didn't move to the weapon at her hip. "How did you get past our security?" "Your security systems operate in 3-dimensional space," Aziria explained patiently. "I simply stepped around them through the 4th dimension. But that is not important right now." She moved to stand behind Marcus, all 4 of her hands coming to rest protectively on his shoulders. "What is important is that you understand what is really happening here." The quantum resonance between them surged at her touch, and Marcus felt his consciousness expand. Without meaning to, he projected that expansion to everyone in the room. Suddenly, the crew could see what he saw. The quantum layer of reality where consciousness flowed like rivers of light, where thoughts created patterns in the very fabric of space-time. "My God," Dr. Watson whispered, her scientific skepticism warring with direct experience. "This is what humanity could become," Marcus said, letting them feel the truth of his words. "Not through invasion or force, but through harmony and evolution. Aziria, this people aren't changing me against my will. They helping me unlock potential that humanity has had all along." "And what about the rest of humanity?" Rodriguez demanded, though her voice had lost some of its edge. "Do we all have to become whatever it is you becoming to achieve this awareness?" "No," Aziria said softly. "Marcus is unique. His consciousness was already reaching for this level of awareness before we met. We simply helped him find the path he was already on. But through him, we can help humanity find its own way to evolve, at its own pace, in its own way." "There is more," Marcus added, knowing it was time for complete honesty. "The Celestial Academy has detected others like me on Earth, humans whose consciousness is already beginning to expand naturally. That is part of why they've been watching us. They knew this convergence was coming." The room erupted in confused discussion, but a new voice cut through the chaos. "Perhaps," it said, "it is time for the High Council to speak directly on this matter." The air shimmed, and suddenly the conference room seemed to expand impossibly. 3 beings materialized, each easily 15 feet tall, their skin patterns so complex they seemed to contain entire universes. The High Council of Lumaria, making an unprecedented direct appearance. Marcus Chen, the central figure, spoke, its voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "You stand at a nexus point of possibility. Your transformation is not merely physical or personal, it represents the first bridge between our civilizations. A bridge we have long awaited." "What do you mean?" Rodriguez asked, her military bearing warring with awe. "Humanity stands on the brink of a great leap in consciousness," another council member explained. "But such leaps are dangerous without guidance. We have seen countless civilizations destroy themselves at this stage, their technology outpacing their wisdom." Marcus and Aziria's connection, the third council member continued, is both symbol and catalyst. "Their love, yes," Commander Rodriguez, It is love. However improbable you may find it, demonstrates that consciousness can transcend all physical limitations. Through their union, we can help humanity navigate its own awakening. Marcus felt Aziria's hands tightened slightly on his shoulders. Through their quantum connection, he could feel her joy at the council, this acceptance mixed with concern about his reaction to such massive responsibility. "I'd never asked to be a bridge between worlds," he said honestly. "The most important roles are rarely ones we choose," the first council member replied. "They choose us. But you did choose love, Marcus Chen. You chose to embrace the unknown, to let your consciousness expand beyond comfortable limitations, to become something new. Those choices made you exactly what both our peoples made." The council turned their attention to Commander Rodriguez. "The choice now lies with humanity. You can leave, take Marcus with you by force if he agrees, write this off as a failed experiment. Or you can stay, learn, and help guide your species toward a future of unimaginable potential." Rodriguez looked at Marcus, really looked at him. She saw the patterns flowing beneath his skin, his increased height, the subtle ways his features had begun to shift toward something between human and Lumerian. But she also saw the same scientist who had boarded her ship with dreams of discovery. You're still you," she said, sounding surprised. "I am still me," he confirmed. "Just more. And I want to help others understand what that means." The commander was quiet for a long moment, her tactical mind visibly working through implications and possibilities. Finally, she straightened her spine and addressed the council. "We all need to contact Earth," she said. "Get authorization for an extended mission. Set up proper diplomatic channels." A small smile crossed her face. "And I suppose we will need to modify our habitat modules to accommodate visitors of your height." The council's skin patterns rippled with approval, and Aziria's joy radiated through the quantum field like sunlight. Marcus reached up to take one of her hands, marveling at how their fingers now intertwined more naturally as his own continued to evolve. "There will be those who fear this change," Dr. Watson warned. "Both on Earth and here." "Yes," Marcus agreed, "but fear of change is part of what we need to evolve beyond. And I can think of a better way to show humanity a path forward than through love." As if in response to his words, the quantum field around them pulsed with possibility. In that moment, Marcus could see potential futures branching out like a cosmic tree, some dark with fear and rejection, others bright with acceptance and growth. But the brightest future, the one that felt most real, was the one where two species reached across the gulf of space and consciousness to help each other become something greater than either could be alone. The universe, it seemed, had a plan after all, and love, in all its impossible forms, was at the heart of it.